Hey Dungeons & Dragons community, Treantmonk here. So I love Dungeons & Dragons, and D&D 5th edition is my favorite edition so far. But I've been playing for a few years now, and I noticed there are a few things that didn't quite work, I think, the way the designers intended. In fact, they have mentioned that they acknowledge that there were some mistakes made. So what I want to do in this video series is look at some adjustments that I think would really make those things that maybe don't work the way they're supposed to become more fun, more interesting, and more balanced. Now, this is our first week doing the Treantmonk variant, and for the first week, what I wanted to tackle was the Ranger. And the reason I want to do that is because, number one, I think we can all agree that the Player's Handbook Ranger doesn't really work as intended. It doesn't really feel like the way we kind of figure a Ranger should feel. I mean, a Ranger should feel like they are both a master of weapons, but they're also a master of the wild. They should be able to be excellent with either dual weapon fighting, or maybe a single weapon, or maybe if they're using archery, and you should be able to select, and it should be something that's good for you. They should have advantages when they're dealing with animals. They should have advantages when they're tracking their favorite enemies. They should be able to be good hunters. They should be able to be good herbalists. Rangers should also be masters of traps and trap setting. So we're going to go through the Treantmonk variant of the Ranger today, including the subclasses. So we are going to be going through the Player's Handbook subclasses for Ranger, Beastmaster, and Hunter, and I have adjusted those as well. As always, in this series, I'm going to be having a link to the PDF for this in the video description, and I'm going to be having a link for this video in the PDF. And in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss the changes I made and the reasons I made them. So let's get started. So as we move into our PDF, I should mention that the Player's Handbook Ranger and the Treantmonk Variant Ranger are set up largely in the same format. You are getting class abilities at the same levels, you're getting subclass abilities at the same levels, and in most cases I have not changed the names of those subclass abilities either. I've merely altered the mechanics of them. So when we go into our class features, the first thing is that the hit points do not change. So the Player's Handbook Ranger gets D10 hit points, as does the variant. When we move into proficiencies, that's where we see our first change. So the armor proficiencies remain the same, light armor, medium armor, and shields, and the weapon proficiencies remain the same as well, simple weapons and martial weapons. However, the Player's Handbook Ranger offers no tool proficiency. Now, I figure that a ranger is supposed to be the master of the wilds. They are supposed to be able to gather herbs and plants in order to help their allies. And so I figured that a tool proficiency in herbalism kit simply made sense for what we expect a ranger to be able to do. So a herbalism kit tool proficiency has been added. When we move into saving throws, again, there is no change. Strength and dexterity are proficient. And then in skills, we have the same list of skills available. Animal handling, athletics, insight, investigation, nature, perception, stealth, and survival. Now, the ones that I consider completely iconic to the Ranger are perception, stealth, and survival. Survival, of course, is not only your ability to survive in the wilds, but tracking. And tracking is completely iconic for Rangers, so I consider survival kind of a must-have for Rangers. And perception and stealth are our scouting skills. And again, if a ranger is going to be a good scout, which I think, again, is iconic, you are required basically to have proficiency in both of those skills. The issue then is that once you have perception, stealth, and survival with the Player's Handbook Ranger, you can now select no additional skills. So if you are a Beastmaster, you don't get animal handling. If you are a hunter, you don't get athletics for climbing trees. It doesn't make any sense. So I have now increased the skill proficiency to 4 skill proficiencies. This is not out of line with other classes in the Player's Handbook. We already have the Rogue that can get 4 skill proficiencies. We have a Bard that has Jack of all trades and gets half proficiency in every skill proficiency. So providing a Ranger with 4 skill proficiencies I thought was completely in line. That way you can take your perception, stealth, and survival and 1 additional skill that you think fits the style of Ranger you want to play. There has also been a change in the standard starting equipment for the Ranger. I haven't necessarily buffed it up. I've simply given more options to provide for different kinds of Rangers. The Player's Handbook Ranger limits you very much to being either a two-weapon fighter or an archer. But I don't think all Rangers want to be a two-weapon fighter or an archer, so I wanted to give some other options. For armor, the options remain the same. You can choose scale mail or leather armor. But for our weapons, you can choose 2 simple melee weapons or 1 martial weapon and a shield. So this provides the option of playing a ranger that is going to use a weapon and a shield. Unchanged from the player's handbook, you can choose a Dungeoneer's pack or an Explorer's pack. For ranged weapons, again, I've provided a choice that isn't available in the player's handbook. In the player's handbook, you automatically receive a longbow with a quiver of 20 arrows. I have simply given the option of a light crossbow and 20 bolts. So if you want to play a ranger that uses a crossbow, that is now an option for you right from character creation. Again, this isn't a boost to the power of a ranger. Longbow is probably better than a light crossbow. The intention is instead to improve the versatility in terms of the concept of the ranger they wanted to play. So now moving into favored enemy, this is one of the things that people have the biggest problem with the player's handbook ranger, because the favored enemy is very odd. The first thing is it doesn't provide bonuses to a lot of skills you would think you would have against the favored enemy. If you want to try to sneak up on your enemy, there are no bonuses for that. If you want to intimidate your enemy, there are no bonuses for that. If you want to deceive your enemy, there are no bonuses for that. Furthermore, favored enemy does not improve with level. Instead, what happens is, as we gain levels, we gain more favored enemies. So when we do that, what happens is, each additional favored enemy is your next choice down. So every time you get a new favored enemy, it's a little less effective than the time you received it before. That's not how class abilities are supposed to work. When you increase in level, class abilities should improve. They shouldn't become worse. Another problem with the player's handbook favored enemy is that as you gain more favored enemies, you gain their languages. So what ends up happening is, as you gain more and more favored enemies, your ranger becomes a linguist, more so than the sages in the party, more so than the knowledge clerics in the party. Again, this doesn't make sense or fit the flavor of what we would expect a ranger to be. A ranger isn't a scholar. A ranger is just an expert hunter. So providing a ranger all these additional languages doesn't fit with the flavor that favored enemies should do. The final problem with the player's handbook favored enemy, and I think this is the biggest problem that even most of the variants I've seen have as well. In addition, the problem I have with previous editions version of favored enemy is that the player must pick a favored enemy and it is a guess. And if that guess is right, they get the bonuses of a favored enemy. And if that guess is wrong, they don't. And that is just not a good way to allow players agency in making an effective character. Now, a DM can potentially help them if the DM knows what kind of enemies they're going to be facing, but that can be a spoiler as well. And DMs don't necessarily want to let their players know what they're going to be facing. So this is a big problem for the ranger and the idea of a favored enemy, that you must guess what you're going to face, and if you guess wrong, too bad. So with my version of favored enemy, I've made changes to address all those issues. Beginning at first level, you have a significant experience studying, tracking, hunting, and even talking to a certain type of enemy. Choose a type of favored enemy. Aberrations, beasts, celestials, constructs, dragons, elementals, fae, fiends, giants, monstrosities, oozes, plants, or undead. Alternatively, you can select one race of humanoid, such as gnolls or orcs. So this is the first change. In the player's handbook, you can select 2 races of humanoid. In the Treantmonk Variant, you may only select one, and this is because of the way it interacts with the mechanics of the rest of the ability. If you spend at least 1 minute observing a creature type outside of combat, or 1 minute studying the tracks of that creature type, or you defeat a creature type in combat, you may switch your favored enemy selection to the new creature type. Once you change your favored enemy, you may not do so again until you have taken a long rest. So what this allows the ranger to do is to study an enemy, whether they're studying their tracks, or they're studying their abilities in combat, or they're simply observing them. They can now set them as their favored enemy. Because it is being limited to once per long rest, we can't constantly switch over and over again. It is going to require you to hone in on one enemy and then gain the advantages against that enemy. You have advantage on wisdom survival checks to track your favorite enemies, on intelligence checks to recall information about them, and then I've added dexterity stealth checks to hide from them, and charisma deception or charisma intimidate checks when interacting with your favorite enemy. So this provides some of the bonuses that I felt were lacking from the original favorite enemy ability. At 6th level, any initiative rolls made for combat fighting your favorite enemy are made with advantage. At 14th level, any attacks against your favorite enemy score a critical on a 19 or 20. So now you are limited to one favorite enemy at a time. You hone in on a single enemy and then you hunt them. And then as you increase in levels, instead of adding additional favorite enemies, we are simply providing additional bonuses to your chosen favorite enemy. What this does is it allows the ranger to be a specialist at hunting a particular kind of enemy, and because the ranger can change that enemy, we can have our ranger be an effective hunter in different campaigns. Neither the bonuses at 6th level or 14th level are huge, but they do provide a bonus that stacks upon the bonuses they already have, so favorite enemy becomes better at level 6 and better at level 14, which is what I think it should do and how class abilities should work. This brings us into the next ability for Rangers, again gained at level 1, and again an ability that people have a lot of problems with, and that is Natural Explorer. So with Natural Explorer, you are picking favored terrains. In the player's handbook, the character gets a reasonable amount of bonuses while traveling overland on their favorite terrain. A ranger selects another favored terrain at level 6 and 10, so they will end up with 3 favored terrains. But just like with favored enemy, they have to guess what terrains they're going to be going into. And again, the DM might tell them, but the DM might not want to tell them. And if you're traveling around a lot, it may be impossible for a DM to even provide you with that information. And like with favored enemy, at level 6 and 10, they're simply providing more options without making the ability any better. And it never moves beyond advantages outside of combat. So I have attempted again to address those issues with Natural Explorer and make it something that is useful for a player character ranger. You are particularly familiar with one type of natural environment, and you are adept at traveling and surviving in such regions. Choose one type of favored terrain: Arctic, coast, desert, forest, grasslands, mountain, swamp, or the Underdark. When you make an intelligence or wisdom check related to your favorite terrain, your proficiency bonus is doubled if you are using a skill that you are proficient in. When you complete a long rest in a terrain that is not your favorite terrain, you may switch your favorite terrain at that time. So again, what I'm doing is I'm limiting the ranger to one favorite terrain, and once they study that terrain, once they spend some time in that terrain, they can master it. Once they do so, that becomes their favorite terrain, and until they go to a different terrain, they will not be able to study any additional terrains. This also makes sense from a role-playing point of view and from a narrative point of view, because a ranger is not going to be able to learn how to master terrain that they are not in. While traveling for an hour or more in your favorite terrain, you gain the following benefits. Difficult terrain does not slow your group's travel. Your group cannot become lost except by magical means. Even when you are engaged in another activity while traveling, such as foraging, navigating, or tracking, you remain alert to danger. If you are traveling alone, you can move stealthily at a normal pace. When you forage, you find twice as much food as you normally would. While tracking other creatures, you also learn their exact number, their sizes, and how long ago they passed through the area. These abilities remain the same. So at first level, Natural Explorer isn't any more powerful, it is simply more flexible. At 6th level, your movement cannot be slowed by difficult terrain in your favored terrain. At level 10, you cannot be surprised in your favorite terrain. So, like with favored enemy, instead of providing you with more terrains, I am simply providing more advantages for dealing with your chosen terrain. And now we have some abilities that can have a small impact on a combat. Again, neither of these are huge. Neither of these are going to dramatically improve your ability to fight in your favorite terrain. But these small advantages stack upon the already existing advantages of Natural Explorer to make it a better ability as you increase in levels. Again, this is how I think class abilities should work. As we move into fighting style, the fighting style options have not changed. You can still choose archery, defense, dueling, and two-weapon fighting. The one thing I have changed is the wording of two-weapon fighting, When you engage in two-weapon fighting, you can add your ability modifier to the damage of any bonus attacks. Now this is going to operate the same as the initial wording of two-weapon fighting, unless we take a look at some of the feat changes that will be coming up later in this series. So I have changed the wording of two-weapon fighting so that it operates correctly once we get into those changes. At level 2, a ranger gains the ability to cast spells. By the time you reach second level, you've learned to use the magical essence of nature to cast spells, much as a druid does. Now, this is one problem I have with the Player's Handbook Ranger, is that a druid is a prepared caster, but they have made the ranger not a prepared caster, so they can't cast spells much as a druid does. So what I have done is I have changed the ranger to be a prepared caster like a druid. So now, like a paladin can cast spells similar to a cleric, a ranger can cast spells similar to a druid. You prepare the list of ranger spells that are available to you to cast, choosing from the ranger spell list. When you do so, choose a number of ranger spells equal to your wisdom modifier plus half your ranger level rounded down, minimum 1 spell. The spells must be of a level for which you have spell slots. For example, if you are a 5th level ranger, you have 4 first level and 2 second level spell slots. With a wisdom of 14, your list of prepared spells can include 4 spells of first or second level in any combination. If you prepare first level spell Cure Wounds, you can cast it using a first level or second level slot. Casting the spell does not remove it from your list of prepared spells. You can change your list of prepared spells when you finish a long rest. Preparing a new list of ranger spells requires time spent in quiet contemplation and preparation, at least 1 minute per spell level for each spell on your list. So mechanically, this is very similar to what we see with a paladin. Wisdom remains the spellcasting ability for rangers, so their spell DC will be 8 plus their proficiency bonus plus their wisdom modifier, and their spell attack modifier will be their proficiency bonus plus their wisdom modifier. As with the Player's Handbook Ranger, you will choose your ranger archetype at level 3. We will be discussing changes to the Hunter and Beastmaster subclasses in this video. I have not taken on any of the other subclasses that we see in things like Xanathars, though I do think that those subclasses, number 1, work better than the Hunter or Beastmaster, and number 2, I think they will all be compatible with this version of the Ranger. At 3rd level, a Ranger in the Player's Handbook receives Primeval Awareness. Primeval Awareness is one of the worst abilities for a Ranger in the Player's Handbook. At 3rd level, they gain an ability where they can expend a spell slot to detect a number of creatures, a lot which don't make sense. Rangers apparently have abilities that are supernatural in detecting celestials and fiends and undead, even though none of those have to do with woodlands. But the ability doesn't reveal the creature's locations or their number, and it is over a massive area. So what ends up happening is the ranger can detect that there's undead within a 6-mile radius. They don't know where the undead are. They don't know how many there are. They don't know what kind they are. So this ends up being kind of useless, as well as not fitting the flavor of a ranger, because why does a ranger have abilities to detect celestials and fiends? Shouldn't this be more in the realm of clerics or paladins? Now, expending a spell slot is expensive, so if we are going to expend a spell slot for this kind of ability, it should give us lots of information. Paladins have a similar ability called Divine Sense, but Divine Sense does not require them to expend a spell slot, and they get it at level 1. So I figure if a ranger expends a spell slot, they should be able to use it to gain a lot more useful information. Something what we would expect a ranger to be able to do when they examine the tracks around them. They can tell things that you wouldn't think that any normal person would be able to do. So beginning at 3rd level, you can use your action and expend 1 ranger spell slot to focus your awareness on the region around you. For 1 minute per level of the spell slot you expend, you can sense whether the following types of creatures are present within 1 mile of you, or within up to 6 miles if you are in your favorite terrain. Aberrations, beasts, dragons, elementals, fae, giants, monstrosities, oozes, or plants. So I've changed the list of creatures available to be more in line with what we would expect a ranger to be able to do. This ability couldn't detect beasts and plants. These are rangers, these are supposed to be their specialties. The feature also reveals specifics about the creatures detected, including quantity, direction, distance, and size. The ranger also knows the exact type of creature if it is a favored enemy. These are the kinds of things that a ranger should be able to do, and Primeval Awareness now fulfills that. Ability score improvements have not changed. We get them at our standard levels, 4th, 8th, 12th, 16th, and 19th level. As with the Player's Handbook Ranger, we are going to receive our extra attack at level 5. At level 8, however, we have a significant change from the Player's Handbook Ranger. The Player's Handbook Ranger receives Land Stride at level 8. Now we've, to some degree, imitated Land Stride within the favored terrain now. So now if you're traveling through your favored terrain, you can move through difficult terrain once we reach 6th level. So I have replaced Land Stride with a new ability that is just missing from the Player's Handbook, and frankly, most role-playing game rangers that I've seen don't have what I think a ranger should be able to do. When it comes to traps, they should be a master of traps. They should be able to set some traps. So the Master Trapper ability, gained at 8th level, allows the ranger to set traps especially well. You may notice a similarity to traps you see in the Dungeon Master's Guide, and that's not by mistake. What I've done is simply provided the ranger abilities that they have, such as their stealth and their spell DC, to affect the difficulty of the trap to detect and deal with. The 8th level ranger will receive 4 different trap setting options. The first is a falling net. The falling net is a mechanical trap. This trap uses wire to release a net suspended from the ceiling or on the eaves of a tree. The trip wire is 3 inches off the ground and stretches between 2 columns or trees. The net is hidden by cobwebs or foliage. The DC to spot the tripwire and the net is equal to the result of the dexterity stealth check made by the ranger when the trap is set. So when you set the trap, you will make a dexterity stealth check. That is the DC to find the trap. A successful dexterity check using thieves' tools equal to the ranger's DC breaks the tripwire harmlessly. So if somebody attempts to disable the trap, it will be equal to the ranger's DC. That is their standard DC that is based on their wisdom and their level. A character without thieves' tools can attempt this check with disadvantage using any edged weapon or edged tool. On a failed check, the trap triggers. When the trap is triggered, the net is released, covering a 10-foot square area. Those in the area are trapped under the net and restrained, and those that fail a strength saving throw equal to the ranger's DC are also knocked prone. A creature can use this action to make a strength check equal to the ranger's DC, freeing itself or another creature within its reach on a success. The net has an AC 10 and 20 hit points. Dealing 5 slashing damage to the net, AC 10 destroys a 5-foot square section of it, freeing any creature trapped in that section. The trap requires the ranger 10 minutes to set and requires the ranger possess a net. The second trap available to rangers of the Treantmonk variant is the Poison Gash Trap. This is a mechanical trap. The trap is activated when a pressure plate against a physical or natural structure is touched, releasing a cloud of poison from a nearby container. The container can be made of an oil-treated cloth or leather pouch. The DC to spot the pressure plate and container is equal to the result of a dexterity stealth check made by the ranger when the trap is set. A spell or other effect that can sense the presence of poison will also detect the trap. The ranger determines at the time of setting the trap how much pressure will activate the trap, causing the container to release a 30-foot diameter sphere cloud of poison gas. Each creature in the cloud must make a Constitution saving throw equal to the ranger's DC, taking 22 or 40-10 poison damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. The successful dexterity check using thieves' tools equal to the ranger's DC removes the pressure plate without activating it. A creature without thieves' tools can attempt this check with disadvantage using any edged weapon or edged tool. On a failed check, the trap triggers. The trap requires the ranger 1 hour to set and requires the ranger to possess the poison. The poison can be crafted by the ranger using the Herbalism Kit. They make a Herbalism Tool Kit Wisdom ability check when they have at least 1 hour in an area covered by foliage or other plant life to collect the ingredients and fashion the poison gas. If they do not have a Herbalism Kit, they may attempt the Wisdom check without their proficiency bonus. The DC for crafting the poison is 20. If this check is failed, the ranger fails to craft the poison at the end of the hour. The check may be made again if the ranger spends another hour crafting the poison. If the check is failed by 6 or more, so that means that they don't get at least a 15 on their check, the ranger takes the damage from the poison using the saving throw and DC set above. Now, I should mention here that a DC of 20 is hard, right? Because we can expect that our ranger is going to probably have maybe a +2, maybe a +3 bonus to their wisdom. And then at level 8, they're going to have a +3 proficiency bonus. So we're probably looking at something like a +5 or +6 bonus to that check. However, if they are in their favorite terrain, this would count as using their wisdom for an ability check related to their terrain. So they would be doubling their proficiency bonus in their favorite terrain. That's going to give them a +6 bonus for proficiency plus their wisdom bonus. So they're probably looking at a +8 or +9. It's still not an easy check to make. It's certainly not automatic. So this isn't an easy ability to use. But remember, as you gain levels, that proficiency bonus, especially when it's doubled, eventually the ranger will be able to do this pretty much automatically. But at level 8, there will still be some risk involved, but it's far from an impossible check. The next trap that a ranger can set is a pit trap. This is a mechanical trap. The ranger can camouflage an already existing pit of up to 20 foot square to create a trap. Typically, the ranger uses either branches and leaves, if in natural terrain, or cloth with wire supports. The DC to spot the covering over the pit is equal to the result of the dexterity stealth check made by the ranger when the trap is set. Anyone stepping on the covering falls through and pulls the covering down into the pit, taking damage based on the pit's depth, usually 10 feet, but some pits are deeper. This trap requires the ranger 10 minutes to set over an already existing pit. So to clarify, this trap does not create the pit, it requires an existing pit, and the ranger merely camouflages it. The next one is the spiked pit. The ranger makes a pit trap even more deadly with sharpened wooden or iron spikes at the bottom. A creature falling into the pit takes 11 or 2d10 piercing damage from the spikes, in addition to any falling damage. The trap requires the ranger 60 minutes to set in an already existing pit, and requires the ranger to be able to access the bottom of the pit. Once the spike pit is set, it can be covered like a regular pit trap. So these 4 trap options, I think, give the ranger the ability to be a master of traps and trap setting, which I think is important to the flavor of a ranger. Now, as we move up to 10th level, I've done a reversal. In the player's handbook, Hide in Plain Sight is a 10th level ability, and Vanish is a 14th level ability. I've reversed this, so Vanish is now a 10th level ability, and Hide in Plain Sight is a 14th level ability, as these are more appropriate with the power levels of these abilities. So at 10th level, you're going to gain the Vanish ability. Starting at 10th level, you can use the Hide action as a bonus action on your turn. Also, you and anyone who you choose who is traveling with you can't be tracked by non-magical means unless you choose to leave a trail. So this is very similar to the Player's Handbook version of Vanish. The only thing that has changed is now we can have the ranger mask the tracks of creatures they're traveling with as well as their own. This makes more sense to me as well. I would imagine the ranger is going to be using their knowledge of nature to cover tracks rather than have some special walk where they don't leave tracks. And if that's the case, then there's no reason they shouldn't be able to hide the tracks of their allies as well as their own. Furthermore, when we're playing Dungeons & Dragons, we tend to play in parties. So having it so that the party can be tracked, but your ranger can't be tracked, doesn't really provide any advantage to player characters. And I wanted it to provide a bonus to player characters because we are the ones playing this class. Now when we get to 14th level, we're going to get the Hide in Plain Sight ability. The Hide in Plain Sight ability in the Player's Handbook is just an insult. It requires you 1 minute creating camouflage for yourself. You must have access to fresh mud, dirt, plant soot, and other naturally occurring materials, which to create your camouflage. I have no problem with that. Once you are camouflaged in this way, you can try to hide by pressing yourself up against a solid surface, such as a tree or a wall, that is least as tall and wide as you are. You gain a +10 bonus to dexterity stealth checks as long as you remain there without moving or taking actions. Once you move or take an action or reaction, you must camouflage yourself again to gain this benefit. So this becomes so incredibly circumstantial, it's essentially useless. And this is a 10th level ability in the Player's Handbook. It is one of those abilities it's not even worth writing on your character sheet because it's never going to come up. You can't move. You have to have a large tree or wall to hide yourself against. You can't hide yourself against the grass or against the ground. And then when you move, suddenly you lose all the camouflage. None of those things make sense at all, and it makes the ability completely useless. So I have now made it a 14th level ability, so I wanted to make sure it was in line with what 14th level abilities should be able to do. So hide in plain sight with the Treantmonk variant, you can spend 1 minute crafting camouflage for yourself. You must have access to mud, dirt, plant, soot, and other naturally occurring materials for which to create your camouflage, exactly the same as the player's handbook. Once you have camouflaged yourself in this way, you may hide from a creature that you can see if you are in a lightly obscured area. If you take a long rest, the camouflage must be replaced. So this is not out of line with abilities that we can gain at much lower levels. You can take the Skulker feat at level 4 or even level 1 as a variant human, and you will be able to hide in a lightly obscured area. But it is still an effective ability, and something now the Ranger can do every day, and it can last all day, and it allows them to hide in places they otherwise wouldn't. Makes perfect sense to me. It's an effective ability, but not a broken ability, and it's interesting, and it fits the flavor of a Ranger, and it is unique. Now at 18th level, Player's Handbook Ranger gains Feral Senses. At 18th level, you gain preternatural senses that help you fight creatures you can't see. When you attack a creature you can't see, your inability to see it doesn't impose disadvantage on your attack rolls against it. You are also aware of the location of any invisible creature within 30 feet of you, provided the creature isn't hidden from you and you aren't blinded or deafened. So this is a little bit convoluted. I understand that at 18th level we should have powerful abilities. The idea that the Ranger has an almost supernatural ability to sense things at this level, I don't have a problem with that at all. But I want to simplify it and keep it effective. So I have changed it so now at 18th level, your senses have reached a preternatural level. You gain blind sight to a range of 30 feet. Effective, in line with what we would expect of an 18th level character, and simple. And finally, we end up with the Capstone of the Ranger. In the Player's Handbook, the Capstone of the Ranger is almost useless. At 20th level, you become an unparalleled hunter of your enemies. Once on each of your turns, you can add your wisdom modifier to the attack roll or the damage roll of an attack you make against one of your favorite enemies. You can choose to use this feature before or after the roll, but before any effects of the roll are applied. Now, Player's Handbook Ranger might have a good wisdom score, but it's not going to be their primary ability score, so we're probably looking at a bonus of maybe +2. So in those few encounters where you are facing a favorite enemy, we could be looking at a +2 damage once per round as a capstone ability. That is insulting. We see other classes with abilities at 20th level that make a massive difference in combat. That's what I wanted to do. So the Treantmonk Variant Foe Slayer, at 20th level you become an unparalleled hunter of your enemies. Anytime you hit a favored enemy with a weapon attack, add 2 damage dice. So this means if you are using something like a longsword, you would add 2d8. If you are using something like a greatsword, you would add 2d6. It's whatever the die type is. This is similar wording to other abilities already existent in the rules. What this means is when the Ranger is fighting their favorite enemy, they are going to add a significant amount of damage to that enemy. So finally, the Ranger is going to get a significant advantage in combat while they're facing their favorite enemies. So that is the Ranger. Now let's move into the archetypes for Ranger, the Hunter and the Beastmaster. So the Hunter, the first one we're going to take on here, I think is the better of the two, or the better written of the two in the Player's Handbook, but it still has some problems. We have options as we gain level that we choose between, but they are not well balanced against each other. The other thing is that the higher level abilities tend to be less effective than the abilities you gain at 3rd level. What this creates is a situation where someone who takes a Hunter really has very little reason to stay with Ranger beyond 5th level once they get their extra attack. So what I wanted to do was change the Hunter so that the abilities are more balanced against each other and that the higher level abilities are better than the lower level abilities. So in the Player's Handbook, at 3rd level, the Hunter is going to choose their Hunter's Prey. They get Colossus Slayer, Giant Killer, or Horde Breaker. In the Treantmonk Variant, you are going to have the same options, but there are some small changes. Colossus Slayer remains the same. Your tenacity can wear down the most potent foes. You can hit a creature with a weapon attack. The creature takes an additional 1d8 damage if it's below its hit point maximum. You can deal this extra damage only once per turn. So this is kind of for the hunter that is fighting one big, incredibly tough enemy, and they're attacking them round after round. They're going to get that bonus damage because the creature is already damaged. Now, Giant Killer I have changed. In the player's handbook, when a larger creature within 5 feet of you hit or misses you with an attack, you can use your reaction to attack the creature immediately after the attack, provided that you can see the creature. So I have changed it so that now the ranger will be more effective when fighting giants. When a large or larger creature within 5 feet of you hits or misses you with an attack, you deal an additional 1d8 damage with the weapon attacks against that creature on your next turn. So the advantage here is that we are still increasing our offense against the giant, but it's not going to be using up our reaction every round. So we are still getting an offensive bonus, but we're keeping a little bit more of our resources. And I think that just brings it a little bit more in balance with the other abilities that are available at this level. I should also specify that although flavor-wise it's about giants, this is about any creature, large or larger. So if you're fighting something like a large dragon, it still counts. And Horde Breaker, again, remains the same as the player's handbook. Once on each of your turns, when you make a weapon attack, you may make another attack with the same weapon against a different creature that is within 5 feet of the original target and within the range of your weapon. So as I mentioned, the player's handbook Hunter, the level 3 abilities are reasonably good. Colossus Slayer and Horde Breaker were always good abilities. The one that was always left behind was Giant Killer, so I've rebalanced it a little bit. So Giant Killer is more effective against large creatures than we would expect from Horde Breaker or Colossus Slayer. So I think it balances better against those other two abilities, and there's a reason why you might want to take it. At level 7, we gain Defensive Tactics, and the Player's Handbook gives us the options between Escape the Horde, Multi-Attack Defense, and Steel Will. I have kept all 3 of those options, but I've changed all 3 of them. In the Player's Handbook, there's little reason to go to level 7 as a hunter because, partially, Defensive Tactics are lackluster compared to what you got at 3rd level. So I wanted to have these abilities at least as good, or perhaps better, than the abilities we got at 3rd level. So Escape the Horde now, your movement does not provoke attacks of opportunity. With Multi-Attack Defense, whenever you are attacked, whether the attack hits or misses, all subsequent attacks against you until the beginning of your next turn are made with disadvantage, and Steel Will, you are immune to fear. So in terms of flavor, these remain very similar to what the Player's Handbook provided. They have simply been made more effective and more in line with what 7th level abilities should provide. At 11th level, we gain the multi-attack ability, and we choose between Volley and Whirlwind Attack. This is the same as the Player's Handbook. The change I've made is, in the Player's Handbook, the Volley ability is significantly better than the Whirlwind Attack ability, which makes it so that Archer Rangers get an advantage for no real reason over melee Rangers. Archery is already good. We don't need to provide additional advantages over melee characters. We also don't want to sour the hunter to melee characters. So what I have done is I have kept Volley the same. You can use your action to make a ranged attack against any number of creatures within 10 feet of a point you can see within your weapon's range. You must have ammunition for each target as normal, and you make a separate attack roll for each target. So just to be clear here, by choosing a point within range, we're choosing a square. So if we are considering a battle map, we're choosing one square, and any square within 10 feet of that square is applicable for the attack. That means 25 squares are covered. That can be a lot of attacks. That is the way it's written in the Player's Handbook, and I'm keeping it the same. It's a good ability, and it remains a good ability. What I have changed is Whirlwind Attack. When attacking with a melee weapon, you may make an additional weapon attack when you use the attack action, as long as each attack is against a different enemy. If you have the 2-weapon fighting style, you may also make an additional attack with your other weapon as part of your bonus action, as long as all attacks from either weapon are against different enemies. So in other words, no matter how many attacks you have, as long as they're all against different enemies, you will gain the advantages of Whirlwind Attack. You may move between targets. These targets do not need to be adjacent to each other. If you have to attack one, then move to the next one, attack that one, and then move to the next one, and attack that one, that's perfectly legal within this ability. It's simply more attacks for the Ranger, but in order to achieve those extra attacks, you have to attack different creatures. And at 15th level, we get the Superior Hunter's Defense. Once again, I'm not a big fan of the choices you have in the player's handbook, so I've kept the flavor of those choices, but I have improved all of them. So we have Spell Evasion, Stand Against the Tide, and instead of the Uncanny Dodge available in the player's handbook, I have Superior Dodge. So Spell Evasion, you have advantage on saving throws versus spells. If it is a spell that allows you to make a saving throw to take only half damage, you instead take no damage if you succeed on the saving throw and only half damage if you fail. So the evasion ability in the player's handbook is really just helping you against damage. Now, not just against spells, but against any effect that causes damage that provides a saving throw. But with this ability, we are giving advantage on saving throws versus spells, so that's not just damage, that's any effect that a spell might have on you that provides a saving throw. Also, those damaging effects that we're protecting against, although they're limited to spells, are no longer limited to just dexterity saves. So if you're hit with something like, say, a shatter spell that would provide a constitution saving throw, or a cone of cold that would provide a constitution saving throw, we're going to get the advantage against those as well, that if we make our save, we don't take any damage. So it definitely increases the number of things that this is going to be effective against. I think overall it makes it a more effective ability than the evasion ability in the player's handbook. Stand Against the Tide is quite different from the player's handbook version. The player's handbook version allows you to have a hostile creature who misses you with a melee attack. You can use your reaction to force that creature to repeat the same attack against another creature of your choice. Now, when you are adjacent to more than one enemy, you have the resistance to the damage of those enemies. So if you are standing against the tide, it makes you better at standing against the tide. I think it fits the flavor of an ability called Stand Against the Tide much better. And it is going to give you advantages when you are going up front and you are taking on all those enemies in the protection of your party. Now in the player's handbook, the Uncanny Dodge ability is identical to the ability that rogues get much earlier on. So I've given a better ability because we're 15th level now. So Superior Dodge, when an attacker that you can see hits you with an attack, you can use your reaction to make the enemy re-roll the attack with disadvantage. So rather than just having the damage of the attack, we now have a significant possibility of making that attack miss altogether. So those are my changes to the Hunter, and what I think it does is at 3rd level, a Hunter's not going to be any more powerful than they were in the player's handbook, except now we have 3 good options instead of 2 good options. And then what I've done is, as we get to 7th, 11th, and 15th level, I provided some better options for Rangers that still fit the flavor of the abilities they represent. This will provide a reason why, if you take Hunter as your archetype for Ranger, you are going to have an incentive to see it through, rather than just take those 3rd level abilities and get out. So this brings us to one of the most problematic archetypes in the game of D&D. Numerous polls of players have ranked this as number 1 as the most problematic archetype, the Beastmaster. So I have made some significant changes to the Beastmaster that I think allow it to keep its initial intended flavor, except making it effective. So let's talk about the level 3 ability, that ability that ruins the Beastmaster for most players, the Ranger's Companion. At 3rd level, you gain a beast companion that accompanies you on adventures and is trained to fight alongside you. Choose a beast that is no larger than medium and has a challenge rating of 1/4 or lower. Appendix D presents statistics for the Hawk, Mastiff, Panther as examples. Here is the first change I've made. The riding horse may also be selected as the Ranger's Companion. A riding horse is also a challenge rating 1/4 creature, but it happens to be large. In the player's handbook, if you want to have a mount as your animal companion, you must play a small-sized ranger. Considering that paladins can get large-sized mounts as companions starting with 2nd level spells, the idea that a ranger having a riding horse that happens to be large-sized as their animal companion, there's no reason in the world to think it could be unbalanced. Add your proficiency bonus to the beast's armor class, attack rolls, and damage rolls, as well as to any saving throws and skills it or you are proficient in. That remains the same. Its hit point maximum equals the hit point number in its stat block, or 5 times your ranger level, whichever is higher. So we have boosted the hit points a little bit. In the player's handbook, it is 4 times your ranger level. Like any creature, it can spend hit dice during a short rest to regain hit points. In addition, the ranger can tend to the creature during a long or short rest, in which case the ranger may spend their own hit dice on behalf of the creature. These hit dice are rolled using the ranger's die type, d10, plus the con modifier of the creature. So this is now in addition to the player's handbook, because your animal companion isn't going to have very many hit dice. So the idea here is now, because your own hit dice are going to be increasing with level, you can use your own hit dice to heal your creature during a rest, because they're not going to be able to heal themselves during a rest. They're going to have a reasonable amount of hit points as you gain levels, but they won't have the hit dice to heal those. Now you can use spells to do it, but now we're providing a non-spell way that you can use your hit dice to do it. Now we could just provide the beast with more hit dice to use during rests, but for balance reasons, what happens is your ranger has a certain amount of hit points, your beast has a certain amount of hit points, and then the enemies have to decide who to attack, and that damage is going to be split up one way or another. So by keeping the same pool of hit dice, we keep the integrity of the balance of the short or long rest. If you attempt to control the actions of the beast, it obeys your commands as best it can. It takes its turn on your initiative. Now I've made some changes here. On your turn, you can verbally command the beast where to move, and you can verbally command it to take the dash, disengage, or dodge action, no action required by you. If you use your action, you can command it to take the attack action. It will continue to attack the same target without an action by you until the target dies or falls unconscious. If you don't issue a command, the DM determines the action of the beast, if any. Once you have the extra attack feature, and you take the attack action, you may give up one attack to command the creature to take the attack action. So there's a lot of changes here, even though it might not sound like it. So I'm going to go through them. So the first thing I've done is that there's some additional things you can command your creature to do without taking your action. Normally you can only command the creature to move, and anything else you want it to do is going to require your action. So I wanted to give some minor things that you could have a creature do other than attacking that isn't going to require your action. So in the player's handbook, first and foremost, if you command a creature to attack on your turn, it requires your action, and the creature attacks on your turn, and then the next turn they will not take the attack action again unless you command it again. So what ends up happening is you've got a mastiff and you say sick it to the enemy, it attacks the enemy once, and then once it attacks the enemy once, then it begins to dodge around, and then it's looking back at you, okay, what do I do next? Which doesn't make any sense at all. So now if you command the creature to attack, it will continue to attack that same creature until that creature dies or falls unconscious. This makes much more sense within the idea of an animal attacking somebody. They don't give up until they're either told to or that creature dies. I've also removed the idea that the creature will automatically take the dodge action if the ranger fails to give them a command. I think it makes much more sense for the DM to decide what they're going to do based on what's reasonable for that situation. The final thing that's changed is how the extra attack feature interacts with your beast companion. In the player's handbook, if you command your creature to attack, you may make a single weapon attack. Now, once you have the extra attack feature and you take the attack action, you may give up one attack to command the creature to take the attack action. That might sound like the same thing, but here's the difference. If you command the creature to attack and then you can make a single weapon attack, then you are not taking the attack action, and anything that requires you to take the attack action to activate, such as two-weapon fighting, for example, you can't do. So what ends up happening is if you're a Beastmaster Ranger and a two-weapon fighter, you get screwed and you can no longer use your offhand weapon if you're commanding your creature. So now what's going to happen in a typical combat is on the first turn, the Ranger is going to command their creature to attack, and then that creature will continue to attack that enemy. Well, the Ranger is now free to take actions of their own. Once the Ranger has the extra attack feature, now they only give up one weapon attack on that first round to get that animal attacking, and then they have to give up one attack when they want that animal to switch targets or do something else. This is similar to a lot of house rules out there right now. I've played with this house rule. It doesn't break anything. We already have summoned creatures and other ways we can add actions to turns. I understand that was the concern of the designers, but they have already involved other areas. You can raise undead. There's all kinds of ways that you can add actions to your turn already. So allowing the Beastmaster one of those ways in no way breaks it. It in no way makes it more powerful than the other options that are already out there for other players. Furthermore, it fits far more with the concept of the Beastmaster. We envision a Beastmaster having a ranger with an animal companion. They move into combat together and they fight in combat together. You shouldn't have to choose between you attacking and your beast attacking. Now you're going to give up just one attack, and now you can attack in that combat until a creature goes down, and then you do it again. If you are incapacitated or absent, the beast acts on its own, focusing on protecting you and itself. The beast never requires your command to use its reaction, such as when making an opportunity attack. This is unchanged. The beast can move stealthily at a normal pace in your favored terrain. This is a slight changing of the wording from the player's handbook. In the player's handbook, the creature only can move stealthily at a normal pace if it is with you alone. Again, we are a player character in a party, so what we're giving now is that the beast, as long as we're in your favorite terrain, it can move stealthily at a normal pace. And your party being present isn't going to prevent that from happening. If the beast dies, you can obtain a new companion by spending 1 hour magically bonding with a beast that isn't hostile to you and that meets the requirements. Why Ranger originally required 8 hours, I don't understand. To some extent, I thought even an hour was plenty of time. I mean, my wife can bond with a cat in 10 minutes that she has never met and that is hostile to everybody else. But she seems to have this special ability, Beastmaster cats. Now, a Beastmaster Ranger should be able to make friends with an animal quickly. 1 hour should be no problem. And having the Ranger have to spend 8 hours doing it while everyone else is presumably taking a long rest just saps fun out of the game. It slows things down. I don't understand what that could possibly bring to the game, and it certainly doesn't bring more realism to the game. So the 1 hour, I think, makes a lot more sense. So at 7th level, we get exceptional training. I've added quite a bit here. The original rules have it so that you can now use your bonus action to command the beast to take the dash, disengage, or help action, and the beast's attacks now count as magical, for the purposes of overcoming resistance and immunity to non-magical attacks and damage. So now, beginning at 7th level, with the Treantmonk Variant, you can verbally command the creature to take the help or hide action. No action required by you. So you don't have to use your bonus action, and we are now including the hide action as a command. If you command the creature to take the attack action, and it has the multi-attack action, it can take that action. From a balance perspective, if we look at the math, this makes sense. Multi-attack creatures get more attacks that do less damage. So providing our multi-attack creature the ability to use multi-attack at 7th level doesn't provide an imbalance between creature types. What it does is it's going to bring those creatures with multi-attack up to where they need to be for that level. Whenever your companion is subjected to an effect, such as the Green Dragon's Poison Breath or a Lightning Bolt spell that allows you to make a saving throw to take only half damage, your companion instead takes no damage if they succeed on the saving throw and only half damage if they fail. This is one of the biggest problems with the Beastmaster, is area of effect spells can take out your companion. We need to make it harder in order to make the Beastmaster an effective subclass, and this does that. Again, like with the Hunter ability, we're not limiting it to just dexterity-based saving throws. It is any effect, such as a Dragon's Breath or Lightning Bolt spell that allows you to make a saving throw to take half damage. So again, we're including any saving throw. You face a white dragon, it has a Constitution saving throw on its breath save. Your creature will get the advantage of this ability on that. In addition, the beast's attacks now count as magical for the purpose of overcoming resistance and immunity to non-magical attacks and damage. So what we've done here is we have basically boosted the versatility of the creature by allowing things like the hide action. It's not going to require a bonus action every round, so if we're a 2-weapon fighter, again, we're not screwed for taking Beastmaster. And then we're improving the creature's defense against effects that require saving throws, like area of effect attacks or area of poison gas, those kinds of things that could kill creatures because they have less hit points than our PCs. But by providing this ability, we're improving their durability, and of course the magical attacks, which is absolutely necessary for creatures at this level and was provided in the player's handbook. So at 11th level, we get Bestial Fury, which is similar to the player's handbook. When you command your beast companion to take the attack action, the beast can make an additional attack. This is the same. If the creature has the multi-attack action, you choose which attack it repeats. So in the player's handbook, this is when a creature with a multi-attack action can actually use it. Again, just making multi-attack creatures worse than standard creatures by having the multi-attack gained at level 7 and then the additional attack on top of multi-attack gained at level 11. We're keeping those creatures in line with single attack creatures. And finally, Share Spells is unchanged. Beginning at 15th level, when you cast a spell targeting yourself, you can also affect your beast companion with a spell if the beast is within 30 feet of you. So all in all, what we've done with the Beastmaster is we have improved the durability of the creature, we've improved the action economy for the ranger using the creature, we've improved the versatility of the creatures you can select, so now you can select a mount for your ranger if that's what you want to do. A ranger can now actually fight up alongside their creature. If they choose a creature with multi-attack, it's not worse than single-attack creatures. It is going to be well balanced against them. And we've improved the ability of the ranger to heal their creature as well as replace them should that need arise. So that is the Treantmonk variant for the ranger as well as the subclass of ranger. I believe this version of the ranger is balanced against other classes in the player's handbook. I've largely kept the abilities the same in terms of flavor, just made adjustments to mechanics to make them work the way that they sound like they should be able to work and make sure that the ability is appropriate for the level that it's gained so that when you receive a high level ability, it is more powerful than a lower level ability. I think the Hunter and the Beastmaster both work within these variants the way that we envision them to work. So I would love to hear what you have to think about these changes, about the Treantmonk variant for Ranger, Hunter, and Beastmaster. Please let me know in the comments down below, or you can reach me on my Discord or on Twitter. And if you notice any mistakes here or compatibility issues, by all means let me know. I believe I've taken care of them, but if there are some that I haven't taken care of, I can then address them. Again, the PDF for this variant is going to be in the comments section, and if you go to the PDF, you're going to find a link that will bring you back here if you wish to go through the explanations for those changes again. So that's it, the Treantmonk variant for the Ranger. Hope you enjoyed it. Next week we're going to discuss the Monk. This is my nemesis, and we are going to fix the Monk as well as the subclasses for Monk in the player's handbook. Until then, I'm going to sit back and relax, have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.